Hello and welcome to IAMC TV Radio. Let's explore the top news headlines today, December 18th. Our first story takes us to Russia, with the assassination of a top military official. Tensions are high.
Russia says they've apprehended a man from Uzbekistan, and he's confessed to planting the bomb that killed General Igor Kirilov.
Head of Russia's nuclear, biological, and chemical protection troops.
Right. This attack also killed Kirilov's assistant. The bomb was hidden in an electric scooter and detonated outside his Moscow apartment.
Now, Ukraine's intelligence service, the SBU, has taken responsibility for the assassination. They're accusing Kirilov of using chemical weapons against their troops, which Russia denies.
Of course. And adding to all this is a video published by the Russian news outlet Baza. It shows the suspect confessing. Says he was acting under the direction of Ukrainian intelligence.
So while the authenticity and the circumstances of this confession are unclear, this incident definitely escalates the tensions between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, it's a big deal. This assassination is the highest-ranking Russian military figure targeted and killed inside Russia since this conflict began. Really raises questions about Ukraine's capabilities and the potential for things to escalate even further. Do you think this signals a change in tactics for Ukraine? Maybe moving towards bolder operations within Russian territory?
Let's shift gears now and look at a story about freedom of speech in Nigeria. This is the case of Abiodun Olamide Thomas, a female activist who's been detained for 6 days.
Yeah, and it all stems from criticism she made about police officers on social media. Her lawyer, Joseph Opute, says the police are trying to charge her with cybercrime. Cyberbullying, too, specifically targeting President Tinubu's son and the Inspector General of Police.
Opute says those charges are baseless, a blatant attempt to silence government critics. He sees it as a sign of the erosion of basic freedoms under the current administration.
This case really brings up that fine line between freedom of expression and being responsible online, especially when you're criticizing people in power. It also shows how important a strong and independent judiciary is to make sure laws aren't being used to silence dissenting voices. What do you think? How will this impact the bigger conversation about freedom of speech and holding the government accountable in Nigeria?
All right, now let's head over to Ghana. The new president, John Dramani Mahama, is taking a strong stance against corruption.
He's living up to his campaign promises. He's putting together a transition team, and their task is to recover funds they think were stolen by the previous administration.
And they're calling it Operation Recover All Loot, or ORAL for short.
Catchy. It shows he's serious about tackling corruption.
The team itself is pretty interesting. There's a former auditor general, a retired police officer, a private lawyer, and an investigative journalist.
That's a diverse group. Sounds like a comprehensive approach to uncovering and getting back any funds that were misused. The journalist is a good addition. Shows a commitment to transparency. Maybe they'll use the media to expose corruption and hold people accountable. It'll be interesting to see how ORAL unfolds and what kind of impact it has on public trust and how people view corruption in Ghana. Do you think they'll be successful in recovering those funds? And will it stop corruption from happening in the future?
Back to Nigeria now, where there's growing concern about fake anti-malaria meds hitting the market.
NAFDAC, that's the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, has issued a warning about counterfeit Paladex tablets and suspensions. It's widely used to treat malaria. Lab tests have confirmed these fake drugs don't have any active ingredients, makes them totally useless and potentially dangerous. Especially for kids, they're the most vulnerable to malaria.
NAFDAC is investigating to try and find the source of these fakes and pull them from circulation. They're urging the public to be really careful when buying meds.
It's a scary situation. Shows how important it is to have strong drug regulations. Counterfeit meds getting into the supply chain can have terrible consequences. And it highlights how important public awareness is, making sure people know how to check if their meds are safe and effective. What can be done to fight this? The production and distribution of these counterfeit drugs, not just in Nigeria, but around the world.
Switching gears to the auto industry now, Honda and Nissan, two of Japan's biggest car makers, are reportedly talking about joining forces.
Yeah, maybe even a full merger. They're facing a lot of pressure from Tesla, the EV giant, and the rise of Chinese automakers. These Japanese companies, they used to dominate the global market. Now they have to adapt, maybe consolidate to survive in this rapidly changing landscape.
A combined Honda and Nissan would be worth an estimated $54 billion. They'd produce a massive 7.4 million vehicles a year.
Wow.
Making them the third largest auto group globally after Toyota and Volkswagen.
This is huge. Traditional giants are trying to deal with the rise of EVs and new competition. Be interesting to see if they actually merge. and what impact it'll have on the industry. Do you think this merger would be good for both companies, and how will it affect their ability to compete with Tesla and those Chinese automakers?
Okay, time for something a little lighter. The Charlotte Hornets NBA team had a bit of a PR hiccup.
Oh yeah, what happened?
During a game, they had this skit. It was well-intentioned, but it backfired. They brought a young fan onto the court, presented him with what looked like a brand new PlayStation 5. Everyone's excited, right? But then, when the cameras moved on, they took the PlayStation away and gave him a jersey instead.
Oh no!
People online were not happy. Accused the Hornets of a bait and switch. Poor kid was probably crushed.
So what did they do?
The Hornets apologized. They said the skit missed the mark. They're going to give the kid the PlayStation and a VIP experience at another game to make it up to him.
Well, at least they're trying to fix it.
Good intentions gone wrong. Shows how important it is to be authentic and follow through, especially when you're dealing with young fans.
Definitely.
Do you think their response was appropriate, enough to smooth things over? Now for some news out of Canada. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland has resigned. Came as a shock to a lot of people.
Wow. Why?
Seems like it was over disagreements with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about how to handle potential tariff threats from the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. This is the first open disagreement within Trudeau's cabinet. Could weaken his power.
Interesting.
Freeland, she's a big name in Canadian politics, known for her role in trade negotiations. She's worried about a possible trade war with the U.S. under Trump, and she's also been critical of some of Trudeau's economic policies. Seems like there's a growing rift between them.
So this resignation really shakes things up, adds a lot of uncertainty to Canadian politics, could even have implications for Canada's relationship with the U.S. What do you think? Will this have a big impact on the Canadian government and how they deal with the U.S. on trade?
Our last story takes us to the Vatican. In his new autobiography, Pope Francis reveals he survived 2 assassination attempts.
2? Wow.
During his trip to Iraq in 2021, he says British intelligence warned his security team about a planned suicide bombing attack in Mosul. Iraqi police intercepted and neutralized the attackers.
Thank goodness. That could have been a terrible tragedy.
In his book, the Pope talks about the risks of that Iraq trip. A lot of people told him not to go.
He went anyway.
Shows his commitment to his faith and his message of peace.
Powerful. This story reminds us of the dangers world leaders face, especially when visiting volatile regions. Security forces play a vital role in keeping them safe. Do you think these revelations will change things? Will it affect future papal visits or lead to tighter security for VIPs traveling to conflict zones?
It's a lot to process. The world's a complicated place.
It is. But by engaging with these complex issues, we become better informed, more engaged citizens.
That's right.
It's not about knowing everything. It's about asking the right questions, looking at things from different perspectives, being willing to challenge our own assumptions.
Yeah. And sometimes, we need to find a little humor amidst all the seriousness.
Absolutely.
Like that Charlotte Hornets story. It's a minor thing compared to everything else, but it reminds us that even with all the heavy stuff, there's still room for a laugh. We're all human after all.
Exactly. It reminds us that we all make mistakes. It's how we handle them that matters.
So taking a step back and looking at all these headlines, it feels like a call to action.
I agree. A call to stay informed, engage in meaningful conversations, help build a better future.
A future where accountability, transparency, and justice are the norm.
Yeah, where freedom of speech is protected, leaders prioritize the well-being of their people.
A future where collaboration and innovation drive progress. And we work together to make the world more just, more equitable, more sustainable.
That's a future worth fighting for, and it starts with each one of us.
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming sometimes, but it's important to stay engaged.
It is. These headlines, they might seem like separate events, but they're all connected, part of this big, complex world we live in.
They remind us that we're all in this together, for better or worse.
And that we have the power to make things better.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us today for this look at the top news headlines. It's been a fascinating discussion.
It has. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's top news headlines on IAMC TV Radio.